Alright, let's get started with day 8 of this adventure. Today we're gonna be working on our stories. What do I mean by that? Simply that if you remember, a photo without a story is not as impactful as a photo with a story. You want to be able to give to your viewer emotions when they're looking at that image, right? A photo that is sharp and technically correct is not going to give you the same impact as a photo that has a strong story, even though it's not sharp and it's not technically correct. You want to be working on emotions versus simply techniques. That's exactly why you're gonna be with your phone the whole day and the whole week, because we're not trying to focus on the technique here, we're trying to focus on the photo and the process that is happening in our brain. So I want to share with you 2 examples of photos with a story and how I came to take it. The first one was in India. I was looking for a street photo showing the daily life of that city. I felt really inspired and compelled with that city. I was in Jodhpur and I was like, how can I really show my viewer how people are living in that place? And for that, I needed to find something that was stronger than just the photo of the street itself. So I started walking around, and at one point I found that really cool street with like tall buildings on each side, and it was blue, beautiful, and I saw that lady walking towards me that was dressed in red, and I was like, yes, that's perfect. Those 2 buildings are framing her perfectly. It's making us focus on her. She's in red, she's popping out of that background that is blue, and she is carrying a big bucket, and she's doing something that will make anyone that looks at that photo think, oh, this is what people do on a normal day over there. The story doesn't have to be that much more complicated. What you want to be thinking about is tiny stories. Everywhere you go, everywhere you look around, try to think about tiny stories. I had guys sitting in the door frame reading the journal, and it's the story of that guy reading the journal. You know, it's daily life. It doesn't have to be extra complicated, but those tiny stories will create an emotional bond with your viewer, which in terms will help your viewer remember that photo a lot more. Now, a lot of people ask me, how does it work when we come to landscape photography? Well, in landscape photography, we can also find stories. There are 2 ways. The first one is simply by adding a human element into your photo. You kind of feel connected to that human in the photo because you kind of want to be that person, or you want to be there when you see it. Or it's simply telling a story through the landscape itself. Maybe there is a path, maybe there is a storm that feels like it's moving, and the landscape itself is living its own life. So here's an example of a photo I shot in the Zion National Park in the USA. We have a very strong stormy sky. We have that great landscape in the background. But if you look closely, there is this path that's going into the image, following the river. And when I was there, when I took that photo, all I had in my head was like, oh, I wish there was a little someone just walking by the river. It feels like it's Frodo going into the Mordor to drop the ring into the volcano almost. It might sound silly, but really I have those tiny ideas in my head. I have those tiny stories that make it more compelling for me when I take a photo. It can be a very simple story or micro story that you have at that precise moment when you take the photo. Try to focus on that when you take photos. So your mission for today, as you have guessed it, is going to walk around with your phone and take photos of stories. I want you to look at everything around you in terms of stories, and I want you to capture stories. After that, you can come in the Facebook group or below and drop the photo and try to have people guess what kind of story were you trying to tell, what kind of story did you capture. If it's obvious and people get it quickly, you did your job really well. So take your notebook while you're going through the process and write down what was the story you were trying to tell. How did you capture your image? Did you use any specific elements in order to do that? And how would I improve something? You know, it's great to take a photo we're excited about, but sometimes it's just good to be a little bit critical and be like, if I wanted it to make it better, even just 2% better, what would I do differently? Ask yourself those questions to progress. All right, good luck with that mission. I will see you tomorrow for another adventure. Bye.